No matter which way you lean politically, you probably know a thing or two about our nation's presidents, but do you know their favorite foods? The President's Kitchen Cabinet gives us some insight from the perspective of some of the African Americans who have served our first families. Earlier this week, I talked to Colorado author Adrienne Miller, a Politico and soul food scholar. So we all love to talk about what's going on in the White House, but today we get to talk about food.
Right.
And that really is your specialty, along with politics, but at the same time, you know about the habits, the eating habits of what's been going on in the White House since George Washington.
That's right. So for the research of this book on African-American presidential chefs, one thing that really surprised me is that African-Americans have been in the presidential kitchen from day one. And so there are a lot of newspaper reports, memoirs, and other things about food in the White House. So it's been interesting just to see what our presidents liked, because food is often a lens for how we perceive the president. If they eat a lot of foreign food or kind of snooty about it, we think that's what the president's like.
Interesting. Okay, so what stories do you have for us then about who was snooty and who was, you know, adventurous?
Right. So the one that got the hardest time for that was Thomas Jefferson, because he spent time in France. And so he served a lot of French food in the White House. And it really set the dining standard for the White House for at least a century after that. And so Patrick Henry teased him about serving half French, half Virginia food in the White House. But he was the first one to serve macaroni and cheese, which back then was a very elegant dish.
Huh.
Yeah. And then, so I think the most adventuresome was probably Franklin Roosevelt, because he served pig's feet in the White House to Winston Churchill.
Wow.
Winston Churchill was not feeling it.
No.
No, he didn't like the
So that was a
texture.
one-time serving?
Yeah, one-time serving. But I think it was the top soul food moment in White House history.
Oh, sure. You were telling me about old fashions. Tell us that story.
So that's a funny story. So Alonzo Fields, who was a longtime butler in the White House, the Trumans, when they came in the White House, they'd like to have old fashions before dinner. And an old fashioned is bourbon, simple syrup of water and sugar, some bitters, and then usually garnished with an orange peel. So he makes the first version, and Bess Truman takes one sip, and she says, "This is too dry. Too sweet. Can you make it drier?" So he changes the formula, and next time she says it tastes like French punch or fruit punch. And then he was frustrated so much that he just gave him straight bourbon. And after that, she takes one sip and says, "That's how we like our old fashions."
That's an old fashioned right there. But this is also is more about food. It's really the role that that these people behind the scenes in the White House have actually played in social issues, right?
Right. So it's food as a metaphor, but it also is a window on kind of the status of African Americans in the broader society. That was mirrored in the White House kitchen. So over time, they were all celebrated as culinary artists, but over time, some were family confidants. Zephyr Wright, who was the longtime cook for Lyndon Johnson, actually sat in the inauguration box when he became president, along with the family. And many times there were civil rights advocates. Zephyr Wright, again, her Jim Crow experiences with the Johnsons as they would drive from Texas to the White House back and forth. She wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom or eat with the family. So President Johnson used those stories to persuade Congress to support the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
So how did you come up with this book? Where did this come from?
Well, basically unemployment. I was in between jobs. And that's when I started the journey for writing my first book on soul food. And as I researched the story of soul food, a lot of these African Americans who cooked for the presidents just jumped off the page at me. So after I finished that soul food book, I said, my next book, I really want to write about these African American presidential chefs.
George Washington, what did he eat?
So he loved green peas, believe it or not. Yeah, but he was a gourmand. He didn't want people to know that because he didn't want to seem like a monarch, right? We had just gotten rid of this monarch. But he loved green peas. In fact, there was a story about an attempted assassination plot involving poisoning his peas.
Wow.
But it was foiled.
Yes.
Yes, but I think that was the first example of culinary homeland security in our great nation.
All right, Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln, so he liked molasses pie, like a molasses pecan pie. Yeah, but he was a very sparing eater. There are accounts of him just picking at his food, and he would actually have to be prodded to eat, especially when Mrs. Lincoln wasn't around. But, you know, he had a lot on his mind at the time.
Other presidents that maybe not top of mind.
So typically when a president comes in the White House, you know, it's a stressful situation, so they usually like the comfort food of home or their childhood. So John Kennedy loved chowder, seafood bakes and things like that. He loved to drink Heineken, and Jacqueline Kennedy loved daiquiris.
Wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. Our Southern presidents usually have Southern food, and especially Tex-Mex in the case of Lyndon Johnson and George W. Bush. President Obama loves salmon, but he really loves nachos with guacamole.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I love that stuff too.
That'll get
all
it.
that good fattening stuff I
Right,
like.
yeah.
And you actually provide some recipes as well, not just stories?
Oh, yes. So I have 20 recipes in the book. Some of them are actual presidential recipes. Others are inspired by presidents. And one of the coolest sets of recipes that I have is I have replicated the 1994 state dinner for Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
So if you want to make that at home, you can do it.
What does that involve?
So it's a sesame-crusted halibut, some vegetables with like a lemongrass curry. And so, yeah, you can handle it. I don't know if you have skills.
You can help me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know about skills, but I would A for effort. How's that?
All right, that sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, Adrienne Miller. This is a beautiful book with great stories. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with our viewers on Politics Unplugged. So thank you for being here.
Great.
Appreciate it. And you can learn more about Adrienne's book or watch this segment again later today at thedenverchannel.com/politicsunplugged. We thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics Unplugged.